The tranquility of nature is just a facade. Living means struggling and fighting. It means winning and losing many battles, both big and small. This struggle affects everyone and everything. Fights over food, over territory, or for love. Nevertheless, violence in nature is often just a ritual that follows a protocol, a set of rules and formalities that almost always prevents serious injuries. That's fighting for life. The most basic facets of the fight for life are the ones that drive almost all males to compete for territory and a mate in order to decide which individuals are the most ideal to have offspring. That's how a natural selection takes place that leads to the improvement of the species. The weapons of some males, which have grown huge as the species has evolved because the females prefer them big, are such imposing weapons that sometimes they prevent the males from leading normal lives. For example, this Japanese rhinoceros beetle is unable to eat. Its long sword is the price it pays for victory in the mating game. It's that simple. Nonetheless, sometimes the behavior of wildlife isn't that simple. Not all the battles between males are the same. Not all of them involve boxing, shoving, and hitting each other. The horns of these chameleons have more to do with aesthetics than they do with the lethal saber of a fencing master. This trident is not sharp. It injects no venom. It's not even intended to wound an opponent or prevent being wounded. It's an ornament. That's all. But a gentleman chameleon's ability to seduce a lady chameleon depends a lot on the visual. The shape is important, but the colors are even more important. The variations in the colors are going to play a more influential role than brute strength in how this encounter among two males and a female turns out. Strength and size count, of course, but they're no longer all that counts. And that is a big evolutionary step. The coloring of the competing male chameleons makes it possible to select the one best able to camouflage itself. The survival of a chameleon depends a lot on going unnoticed by both predators and prey. That's why their ability to change colors is crucial, and that's why it's judged when they fight. As they get angrier, their colors grow more intense. The colors vary from lighter to darker tones, and patterns of bands or dots appear that in each species demonstrates the ability of each individual. That helps the female to choose between her two suitors. This time, the age and size of the larger of the two combatants left little room for surprise. Although, among chameleons, you never know. One of the things they value most, besides coloring, is the ability to do everything very, very slowly. The longest, toughest, and oldest biological fight in nature, what we could call the real First World War, takes place between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. Animals eat plants, and plants defend themselves. Even if we don't see it as a fight, it is. Plants keep inventing the most sophisticated poisons and the sharpest thorns to defend themselves from the continuous attacks of the herbivores. And the herbivores counterattack by developing immunities, cast iron stomachs, or desensitized tongues that don't feel it when they're stabbed, like the giraffes. Acacias, the favorite food of these voracious leaf eaters, have re-counterattacked with a high-tech double anti-herbivore protection system. When they're bitten, these trees secrete complex toxic substances that make their leaves taste bad. And in this way, they make the giraffe go somewhere else to look for something that doesn't taste so bitter and that doesn't upset his stomach. But the giraffe will have to walk pretty far because the wounded acacias give off a secret signal through the air that warns all the acacias in the area of the attack, and they all go on the warpath. And so this highly sophisticated chemical weapon maintains the balance between the acacias and the giraffes. The fight between animals and plants, between producers and consumers, is managed and will continue to be managed so that there are neither winners nor losers. In terms of chess strategies, we could describe it as a draw. Although there is a case of checkmate. This baobab is one of the largest living beings on the planet. It may weigh more than 1,500 tons and have lived for 1,000 years. The elephants beside it are small in comparison, almost irrelevant. And yet the elephants have finished off the baobab. The fate of all these giant plants is to die without having offspring. There won't be any new baobabs, at least wherever there are elephants. Elephants are the largest animals that walk on grass, and the largest animals that eat grass too. Except that they don't eat only grass. They also eat trees more than anything else. What's left of the African savanna is good proof of this. And since every day less and less of the savanna remains, the damage caused to the vegetation by elephants is more and more evident and increasingly unbalanced. Although we should point out that the elephants aren't the real culprits that we should blame for this situation. We human beings should allow the elephants access to longer routes on their seasonal path in search of food. But we don't. And so elephants today can almost never leave Africa's national parks. That's why elephants now represent such a tremendous threat to their green neighbors. In Tarangire, in the heart of Tanzania, the elephants have killed off the baobabs for good. The few that are still standing will last as long as their age permits, maybe 1,000 years or more. But that, in baobab terms, is just one generation. None of their seeds will succeed, so no young baobab will escape from the elephant's trunks. Only these large old trees can withstand the elephant's attacks. But no son of a baobab will be able to survive. This landscape's days are numbered. As we watch powerlessly the decline of this magnificent species. Unless we humans become extinct before the last baobab dies, and so free the baobabs from the elephant's harassment. But then, who would be left to care? Fortunately, the fight for life doesn't always involve such dramatic consequences. The fight is something very common, and that's why it shouldn't cause more than minimal harm to the combatants. The dik-dik has managed to reduce the cost of its battles to practically zero. In fact, when dik-diks fight, the males normally don't even touch each other. They just threaten each other and try to scare their opponent. The females are always watching, and logically they join the winners and live in their territory. We can't say that the dik-dik is exactly the paradigm of a great fighter, but as we'll see, their technique is fantastic. They don't shed a drop of blood and hardly a drop of sweat. Dik-diks have tiny horns if they're males, and no horns at all if they're females. They stand barely 30 centimeters tall. That's just 12 inches. Everything about them is small, actually, except their noses, which they can even stretch. Another of the dik-dik's characteristics is the gland that males use to mark their territory, blade of grass by blade of grass, trying to make it clear to potential competitors just who's in charge here. In any case, the dominant male never lets his guard down, not for a second. He's on constant alert with all 5 senses, always on guard, just in case another male appears on the scene. He's got great senses of smell and hearing. And he just smelled and heard something that he likes least of all, another male dik-dik. He'll have to confront him, and maybe this one will be less of a coward than the one this morning. It will be a veritable duel, even though they won't ever touch a single hair on each other. Although dik-diks don't use them much, the horns of deer, buffaloes, goats, and antelopes are a terrific invention. And it seems like the girls in all the species just love horns. Big ones, long ones, twisted ones, thick ones, rough ones, sinuous ones. Whatever they look like, their purpose is to keep the combatants from breaking each other's heads when they fight. Horns are the definitive tool for those animals that have to fight without using their hands. And they're also pretty cool looking. They're the sexual attributes that make the difference. And that's because with a good set of horns, you can avoid a lot of problems. Nobody messes with the guy who's got the biggest ones. That's an unwritten rule that everybody respects. The thing is, when two animals have horns that are just about the same size, things get a little complicated. These two Grant's gazelles have almost identical sexual attributes. It almost seems to them as if they were looking in a mirror, and that really gets their blood boiling. They still have a few more steps to take, however, before beginning to fight in earnest. All males, no matter how brave or strong they are, prefer to avoid the risks of a real fight. Well, except for those clumsy males that charge into a brawl right off the bat. The rituals prior to a combat are another very interesting strategy. These rituals mark the increasing levels of violence in the confrontation. Sometimes two males face off only up to level 1 of their fight program, and the dispute is completely resolved at that first level. But looking in the mirror and exhibiting their horns wasn't enough for these Grant's gazelles to decide their quarrel. so they move up to level 2. Like the Dik-Diks, they have barely touched each other, but there is already a winner. They didn't need to resort to level 3, where really unfortunate things can happen. As we can see, antelopes aren't as barbaric as some primates. The key to preventing unnecessary harm lies in controlling the succession of degrees of violence and applying them appropriately. The more complex the species' social relationships are, the more they need to learn to control their aggressiveness. And as with any important matter, the lessons have to be taught beginning at a young age. Learning to live has a lot to do with learning how to play. And that's why it's good for young animals to play and play endlessly. Perhaps sometimes their games seem a little violent, but they have to be. In addition, there are posturing, gestures, and attitudes that calm the fight in an instant so that things don't get out of hand. The hierarchy of the family and the group is established on the basis of all these experiences, and that prevents a lot of frustration and complications among the adult companions. At the same time, games are a kind of entertainment, as these fighting games serve to grow and develop both physically and psychologically. These games help to gain agility and a sense of balance, and to improve the reflexes, which at a given moment may help to escape from a playmate or also to dodge the attack of a predator. And each individual learns to recognize its abilities and its limits. Monkeys, which are so similar to people, are able to have fun and learn at the same time. Together with facial and corporal expressions, this chasing, hitting, and shoving make up a very complete language. The ties within the group gradually form according to the results that are repeated most frequently in these games. The ones who win the most often will be the dominant males and females. And everyone will happily accept the order that is established because it emerged in a gradual, natural, and fair way. The hierarchical organization of species is forged from infancy. It plays a fundamental role in cushioning aggressiveness, and it also serves as a cohesive element that unites the clan or the herd, so that together and well organized, they can improve their chances for survival. The babies' games gradually become more serious as they grow older. And of course, when they reach adolescence, their spirits run high. Young impalas may be the most ardent adolescent males in the animal kingdom. If they had their way, they would spend all their time competing with each other. An absolute free-for-all. But of course, this tires them out considerably, and they inevitably aren't as attentive as they should be to the possible presence of predators. To reduce the risk of being attacked while they learn to use their horns, the adolescents live with other males of various ages, and one of them is always on the lookout, just in case. The members of these exclusive bachelors clubs include adolescents, adult males that don't yet have their own group of females, and also those adult males that have lost their females. That is, apprentices, aspirants to become alpha males, and deposed alpha males. Although the ones that fight the most are the adolescents that are competing for the right to enter Impala Paradise by becoming the best in the bachelors club. Someday, they will challenge the super male that lives a few kilometers away, alone with his harem of females. He won this right by beating the strongest rivals in 1,000 bloodless battles. The problem is, sometimes these battles do have very serious consequences. On the savannah, an injury makes you very vulnerable to the lions, and a limp is the quickest way to draw their attention. And if you give up, when you give up, you can dodge the hunter, but you'll end up with the scavengers. The deaths of the weakest, of those who haven't been invited to the party to propagate their genes, will feed new fights, new attempts. The vulture's eyesight is the best in the animal kingdom. It's like they've got a zoom in their eyes to spot dead animals from the air. And of course, the more vultures there are around it, the easier it is to locate a corpse. Flying vultures can see other vultures descending from very far away, and that, in the language of vultures, can mean only one thing: that you have to hurry up before the others gobble up the whole feast. Vultures don't have to hunt. They eat the corpses that they just happen to stumble upon. They only have to have stomachs that can handle very well-done meat, even decomposing meat. But they do have to fight for each mouthful that Mother Nature serves up to them. The risks that they don't have to run to catch their prey, they do have to run to get each bite next to the other vultures around them. But there are rules that establish some order in the chaos of vultures squabbling over dinner. The hungriest ones are also the most aggressive, and as they gradually satisfy their appetite, they become less violent in the fight for tendons and intestines. Consequently, there is a rotation at the buffet table, and the whole group gets to eat something in a way that is very proportional to what's available. Although wolves also scavenge sometimes like vultures, wolves are mainly hunters. And in wolf society, things are done as a group, and everyone has a role to play. That's why there is a hierarchy at their family feasts that prevents altercations. Even if they are very hungry, a strict code of signs, gestures, and sounds manages the tension quite well. The key to happiness doesn't lie in being the leader of the pack. It's fine to be number 3 or 5. The key is in knowing to a T what your place is within the group. It's not a question of conforming, but of recognizing your abilities and offering them to the clan. Wolves understand that perfectly. Although water covers 71% of the Earth's surface, at the bottom of the seas there's no more available terrain than on dry land. It's almost all sand, like an immense desert. Only on the reefs and on the rocky bottoms near the coasts is there really life. Here, every stone, every nook and cranny is somebody's territory. The majority of marine life is concentrated around these living oases, and that's why big demand. This shrimp is looking for a hole, and the one he likes already has an owner. The popular name we have given this species is boxer shrimp, because they're very surly to each other. They can't stand to have another one near. But to keep from killing each other, they developed a brilliant trick, and so they always fight by category according to their size. They compare how long they are, the size of their claws, to see if one of them is clearly bigger. They always look for some way to resolve the dispute without bloodshed. They touch each other with their long antennae, communicating to the other exactly what their intentions are. And if there is a fight, it's very quick. The aim is to grab the other's claws. And when one of them manages to do that, the other shrimp accepts defeat and, as the loser, voluntarily surrenders its left arm, the weaker of the two claws. The loser is left one-armed, but only temporarily. The next time it sheds its exoskeleton, in just a few weeks, it completely regenerates the lost claw. There's not much extra space in these waters either, especially in those little pools by the banks which evaporation has isolated from the main channel. The territory of a Siamese fighting fish changes in size and shape. It grows or shrinks according to the rains or the heat. That makes these fish one of the most antisocial animals on the planet. When two Siamese fighting fish end up isolated in a pool that's too small, one of them will kill the other, since there's no way to run away. There can be only one. It looks like the red one is going to win. At least, he's the biggest braggart. Male Siamese fighting fish have disproportionately large fins. Their first purpose is to make their owners visible to other Siamese fighting fish in these muddy waters. They're also useful to court the ladies whenever they find them. But above all, they are a shield. Given their length and surface area, his rival's attacks almost never reach the vital parts of the body. His fins end up in shreds, but the damage doesn't go beyond that, and the fins will heal. When one of the combatants feels clearly beaten, he stays completely still so as not to incite the winner to keep attacking. He surrenders. This technique, in which he spreads his fins out completely to reveal his wounds, placates his rival and gains him a few hours' respite. With luck, even a whole day. And fortunately in Thailand, it rains frequently. Another source of conflict in the wild is the differences between the sexes. Actually, the lack of differences. When the guys and the gals look so much alike that you almost can't tell them apart. That's why there are mating rituals, to clear up this crucial point. Animals' mating rituals are extremely varied, and some are even violent. Hippopotami look like they bite each other more than kiss each other. The giraffe's mating rituals begin the same way fights between giraffes do, with some blows to the neck, a shove or two. How does the other one respond? If it's strong and has male hormones, it will respond aggressively and hit back. If the violence grows, then it's a tiff between males, which has no future. But if, to the contrary, during the skirmish one of the two giraffes backs off instead of returning the blows, refusing to respond with more violence, then that indicates that it's a female, and that the meeting will have a happy ending among the trees. For the moment, there's no room for confusion among these toads. There are only males in the pool. They've been calling to the females for days, but the ladies still haven't shown up. They're hot-blooded. They are Spanish toads, after all, and that makes a difference. Each toad is trying to claim a good spot with the ideal depth to fertilize his future mate. And he wants a bit of peace and calm, so the other males around can just take a hike. But they're not leaving. If in the heat of the night one of these toads were to grab another the way he would hold a female, then total chaos would break out among the toads. Everyone would try to mate with the alleged lady. Although, who knows? Maybe it is a lady. Who can see a thing in this darkness? But the sun will come up soon, and the party will continue tomorrow. This clash between a male and a female is very unusual. It's not a mistake like the toads, nor is it a violent mating ritual like the giraffes. But for a mating ritual, the female sure is playing hard to get. She's rejecting the suitor. He's a young male that hasn't earned such a place of honor yet, and he won't follow the rules. Isn't there an alpha male around here somewhere to defend the lady? Maybe a lion ate him. Finally, thank goodness. Okay, now everything will be as it should be again, after a bit of shoving. Squabbles between the sexes, clashes among males, fights to the death, or mere threats, the fight for life takes many forms. Little daily quarrels are the most common thing among neighbors, but they're very important. They let off steam. Zebras, like any other animal, live with a high level of stress. They know the lions are out there, and that makes them nervous. Letting the tension build up would be counterproductive. A little spat that sets things straight never did any harm to anybody. Resting your head on your neighbor's shoulder is also an ideal way to make up. Neighbors are potential friends when they can cooperate amongst themselves. But some neighbors can only be enemies. When the number of ants in an anthill grows with the birth of a new generation, their need for resources also grows. And then the ant colony's only option is to conquer more land. This is a reconnaissance mission made up of soldiers from an anthill, and it has just crossed the borders of its territory. Animals generally avoid injuring each other, but today, that won't be possible. Ant colonies that share borders often descend from sister queens. Genetically, they're very similar, but they're not identical. They can distinguish their cousins perfectly from themselves. They know what the presence of invaders next to their home means, and they are well aware of which family the ants belong to. There may not be any other form of violence in the animal kingdom as fierce as this. Here, there are no protocols, no strategies, no rules. They wouldn't make any sense. There is only one aim: to eliminate the other anthill in order to have enough resources at their disposal. It's their lives or ours. It's only a question of using brute force to kill as many of the enemy as possible. Some ants seem to try to stab their sting in others, but they don't have a sting. Ants descend from wasps, and some species still have a sting to inject venom with. But that's not the case with this species. Nonetheless, the tremendous aggressiveness that some individual ants exhibit leads them to resort to every kind of weapon they know, even those that they no longer have. This madness that takes over as they fight to the death also seems to eliminate completely the pain they feel on the battlefield. That's why an ant that has been cut in two keeps fighting as if it were whole. No body and no part of a body will stop fighting until they have used every last ounce of energy. War among the ants is cruel, merciless, and fierce, just like any other war. We humans are aware of all the possible consequences of a confrontation, but wild animals are not. They only follow their instincts. another fight is over. The winner celebrates his victory in the most visible place he knows in the forest, his branch. Just in case someone has seen what he did. Mother Nature has a big prize in store for the victor and his genes. The law of the jungle is to compete, and only the best prevail and procreate. Competition is also stimulating for humans, but we can control our fighting instinct and reach out to others in solidarity, with love rather than violence.